A great crowd gathered around Jesus in a desert place. Thousands of people, and he talked to them and healed them. At the end of the day, they had nothing to eat all day long, and Jesus said to his friends, "Give them something to eat." But his friends said, "We have nothing to give them. And anyway, there are thousands of them. How could we possibly have enough?" A child was standing near Jesus. They said, "Here, I have some food, 5 loaves of bread, and 2 fish." And the child gave them to Jesus. Jesus' friends laughed. 5 little barley loaves, 2 small fish? What difference can that make? But Jesus took the bread and broke it and held it up to God and gave thanks. And then he gave it to his friends, along with the rest of the loaves and the fish, and they gave it to the people. And somehow there was enough, and more than enough for them all. 5,000 people. 5 small loaves of bread and 2 little fish. And there was enough, and more than enough. And the people cried out, "God is with us, as in the days of old with Moses. God is feeding us in the desert, like God fed the children of Israel after they came out of Egypt with bread from heaven. There is enough and more than enough. Now we don't need to be afraid. Now we don't need to fight. God's kingdom is coming. Enough and more than enough."
Sharing.
Why do you think that was the most important part?
Because people would die if they won't share. I'd be sad.
God being caring.
And letting them rest when they need to rest. Without loads of crowds just being really noisy.
The most hopeful thing about this story. In this story, Jesus takes and uses what the child offers. When I was reflecting on this story with children, they thought the child might have wondered whether what they had was enough and whether they should offer it, but they decided to give it to Jesus anyway. And what a good thing they did. A lunch of just 5 rolls and 2 fish feeds the whole crowd, and even better, there are leftovers. It gives me hope that Jesus can take whatever we have to offer and turn it into something much greater than we could ever have imagined. All we have to do is offer, and then we can let God do the rest.
The child which brought food and let God hand them out to everyone. I'd be like the child, and when I'd be bringing out the food, I'd be thinking, this is all I have, but nothing is impossible. Mostly because of Jesus, but some things but there's always a way, even without him. So I'll just try my best.
When I read or tell this story usually, I think of the echoes of the Eucharist. But after the last 18 months, this isn't what stands out to me. Jesus thought he was leaving the crowd, but they came to find him in this remote and unexpected place. This meant that Jesus had to respond in the situation that he found himself in. We've learnt over the last year and a half that we can do ministry in places and in ways that we might never have expected to. Toddler groups in the church car park, sharing the light of Christ over a Zoom Christingle service, and bringing our Easter garden outside the church. My hope is that we can continue to be creative about when and where our ministry happens.
God might think that the children are kind and caring and are responsible for also being kind and looking after other people and not just adults.
I sometimes hear the phrase that children are the future of the church, and I think that there also can be an underlying sense amongst adults that we have to teach children about God. But this story turns all of that on its head. It's a child, not an adult, not even one of Jesus' disciples. It's a child who shares the food that they have with them. It's a child who responds to Jesus and gives him all that they have. It's a child who lives out what it means to be part of God's family and to bring God's kingdom closer. So this story shows us that children are not just the future, they're part of God's church today. And if we pay attention, they may actually be the best people to teach us and show us the way to God's kingdom.